Hello, welcome to He's Hot, but Something is Off with me, just Joey T. It has been hot in Los Angeles. We just had a heat wave. It is Tuesday night as I'm recording this. So today was the first day where it was a regular-ish temperature up in 90-ish, low 90s Fahrenheit here in West Hollywood. But for like the past 4-ish days, it's been 100 or over 100. I think the hottest day was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which works out to be, I think, about 40 degrees or so Celsius. So it wasn't actually too bad in my apartment, but it was the first time in the whole year where we kind of had to run the AC during the day. Usually during the day, the house gets up to high 70s, 77, 70, 79 degrees. If no AC, no HVAC, no nothing, that's usually about as warm as it gets. And I'm perfectly okay with that temperature in the house because I'm just sitting in front of the computer. I'm not doing any exercise in my house. I'm just sitting around. So I'm not like, burning any calories, if you will. Nothing to warm me up otherwise. And we just open the windows, the patio door, whatever, have some ventilation, and it's fine. And if it gets if I feel a little bit warm, I have a fan on low, and it's completely fine. But the past few days the house has gone to, into the low 80s with the temperature outside being so hot. But yeah, we're going to get some cooler weather, so that's something to look forward to. Anyways, today I do have a topic in mind. I'm a techie. As some of you may know, I think most of you probably don't know, but I'm a techie. I'm into gadgets, and I keep myself up to date. I read tech news every single day, amongst other news. And some of you may know that Apple just announced some new iPhones earlier this week on Monday. So I thought it would be fun for me to give y'all my take and my unsolicited opinions on the new iPhones. And also I want to run through some scenarios where I give my advice on whether you should or shouldn't upgrade to the new iPhone. So here we go. First of all, let's just run through what Apple actually announced this past week in their event on Monday. So the stars of that show were the new iPhone. So we're up to iPhone 16 now. So we have the iPhone 16, the quote-unquote base model. Then we also have the iPhone 16 Plus, which is just a version with a larger screen, larger form factor, and also a bigger battery. Then we have the Pro models. We have the regular iPhone 16 Pro and the 16 Pro Max. So this is a similar lineup to the previous years, the 14s and the 15s. For example, we had the iPhone 14 or 15, then you had the Plus, then the Pro, then the Pro Max. So not any big changes in terms of how the lineup itself is configured, if you will. Now, what's actually new with these iPhones? So it's actually a pretty minor update hardware-wise for the phones. There are a couple of noteworthy physical features here and there. And the first one is a new button called the camera control button. So before you had the power button, volume button, and the either the silent switch that has been a staple for iPhones for a long time, or on the 15 Pro and Pro Max last year, they changed that switch, that little toggle, as a silent toggle, and it became what's known as the action button, that you could use it to silence the phone, but you could also configure to do other things as you wish. This camera control button is on every single new iPhone 16 model, and it's on the lower right side of the phone. And as the name would have you believe, it is all about using the camera. So you can kind of use it as a old school shutter button. If any of you even remember what regular old school dedicated cameras are, there's a shutter button. You can use it in a kind of similar way. You press it and you take a photo, but it's also touch sensitive. So you can swipe your finger over it to select different camera settings, or you can use it to select the updated photographic styles, if you will. So there's a brand new button, and I'll get into more about whether it's worth it or not a little bit later on. I mentioned the action button that was on the Pro and Pro Max 15s last year. Now, every single iPhone 16 also has this action button in lieu of the silent toggle that I personally kind of prefer the toggle because it's easy and it's something that I flip all the time. But that button is coming to every iPhone 16 now, so there's no more silent toggle anymore. Onto cameras, the base 16s, not the Pros, they have a new ultra-wide camera. And then for the Pros, there's a new main camera and also an even better 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera. And it still has a telephoto camera on the Pros that the non-Pros don't have. Last year, the Pro Max had a 5x telephoto, and the regular Pro, not the Max, had a 3x telephoto. This year for the 16s, both Pro models have the exact same 5x tetraprism telephoto camera lens. So that's an upgrade. And outside from that, kind of sort of bread and butter improvements that we see with every new generation of phones usually, there's going to be moderately better battery life. I think this year they made a little bit more of a leap on battery life, at least in terms of the Apple claims in terms of number of hours that each phone will last, versus the jump from 2022 to 2023 of the 14s to the 15s, for example. The screens on the Pros, the Pro and Pro Max, they are a little bit bigger than their equivalent versions from the last couple of years, and the bezels are also a little bit thinner. Before, the displays on them are also a little bit improved, but not in any big, huge way. And for all the 16 phones, there are some fun new colors if you got the non-Pros, because they have some really vibrant, kind of fun colors for the non-Pros this year. But for the Pros, you kind of get the more button-up colors, which is like white, gray, black, etc. Okay, what's not the same? For the base 16 models, not the Pros, the screens seem to be pretty much identical, and the main camera on the base models are pretty much the same. And for all the 16 models, the front camera, the selfie camera, there doesn't seem to have been any changes either. So there have been other changes that Apple made to the iPhone 16 lineup compared to the 15s of last year. These are just what I think are the most noteworthy ones for the average consumer. So there are some of the cameras have been upgraded on most of the models. The action button is now on every single iPhone throughout the iPhone 16 lineup. And there's a 5x telephoto for both of the Pro phones now. The new camera control button that is touch sensitive and also works as a shutter. Better battery life. Apparently, they also made the front glass, the glass on the display, a little bit quote unquote tougher. Obviously, Apple doesn't do. Sometimes they just speak in relatives, like, oh, it's better battery life, or the glass is tougher, or like it's better in some way. They don't usually quantify that much stuff. Some new colors, and yeah, that's basically the main differences you need to know. If you want to dig into all the technical differences, on the Apple website itself, there's a comparison tool under every single tech blog, tech website out there. A bunch of these comparisons on the specs are starting to pop up. Okay. What I get asked by friends somewhat often, especially when some big new piece of tech like a new iPhone comes out, is whether I should upgrade. And throughout my years, not just from friends, but also during my time in IT, whenever there's a new iPhone that comes out, it's always a little bit of a headache for the IT department at the office, because a bunch of people will get the iPhone either when it comes out, or actually more likely during the holidays, during Christmas time. A lot of people get new phones, and then when you get the new phone, they don't transfer their work email accounts properly onto the new phone, the Slack accounts or whatever. So we always get a few calls sometimes during Christmas break, and usually right after the first day we come back, where people have gotten a new phone over the holidays and they have not transferred the work accounts over properly, and now they can't log in on their new phone. And the old phone is no longer with them because they traded it in at the Apple Store or with AT&T or Verizon or whoever. But anyways, I digress. I'm going to run through, in my experience, the common reasons that people want or are thinking about upgrading to a new iPhone. And through my years of experience, it's usually about 4 or 5 different reasons where someone might want to think about upgrading to a new phone. The first one is they just want the new one. They don't really care about what is changed or not changed. They just want whatever is the latest, the shiniest thing. Even if the latest, shiniest thing, it's like a carbon copy of the last year's model. They just want the newest and greatest thing. And I'm always of the persuasion that, if you want something just because you want something, like a tangible good that you can buy, like a consumer good usually, even if there's no actual good reason to do it, you don't need to justify it. If you want the new iPhone, you have the money, go get the new iPhone. No harm, no foul. So sometimes people will say, well, why do you need the new one? It's not any better. It's not any different. It's super expensive. Your old phone works just fine. Your old phone is maybe not even a year old. But if you have the money and you just want the new one, I feel like you don't have to justify it. You do you. It's your money. Get the new iPhone. Live a good life. Have fun with it. So I always want to put it out there, but I feel like that's not the super common advice to just like, hey, just go buy the new one if you have no reason, even if you have no reason to do it. So let's get that one out of the way. Some people just want the new thing, and I totally get it. Get it, girl. Treat yourself. You have the money, go do it. Go buy the new one. Pre-orders are this week, and I think they come out next week in stores. Okay. The second one is, and this is a new one actually. You're interested in the new AI features that Apple have been hyping up this year, or what they call AI is Apple Intelligence. Not artificial intelligence, Apple Intelligence. And if you are interested in Apple Intelligence, they don't ship out of the box with the new iPhone 16s. Even though they explicitly claim that all the new iPhone 16 phones were built from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. The reason it's not shipping out of the box with any of the AI features is because some of the AI features are going to be coming in the first iOS 18 update. So iOS 18 is going to be the next version of the iOS software that runs on the iPhones. Out of the box, they're going to ship with iOS 18.0. And the 0.0, I think, doesn't have... I don't think any of the AI features are in the 18.0. Maybe like a minor thing here and there, like some machine learning thing in the background, but they've always used machine learning. Machine learning isn't part of what Apple is advertising as Apple Intelligence. So in the event on Monday, they talked ad nauseum about Apple Intelligence and some of the features and did some showcase in the event, but none of them is making the launch. So you actually need to wait until iOS 18.1, the 0.1 update to iOS 18, before you see some of the AI features come. And there are some other Apple Intelligence features that don't come until later, that don't even have a hard launch date yet. So what I will say is, if you're really interested in what Apple is hyping up as its Apple Intelligence features for the iPhone, I would say just hang on to your money for right now. And, a lot of these features, a lot of these AI features look great in a demo or look great in a press video, look great on paper. They sound like they would be really useful. And obviously, when the vendors like Apple or Google, whoever, are demoing the AI features, they portray them in the best light possible, right? And they make it sound like it's the best thing since sliced bread. Really, though, some of the AI features will be hit and miss, and it's going to be kind of depending on how you use your phone, right? There's certain AI features that, hey, maybe it doesn't work for you because it doesn't really fit into your life, or you just don't have a use case for it, right? Not every AI feature is going to be for everyone, especially on something like a phone where people use their phone so differently that not everyone's going to use it the same way. Not all the AI features are always going to apply to everyone. So I would say wait till at least iOS 18.1 comes out and just read some reviews about it. And by that time, the AI features will be in some people's hands, and maybe you can try it out. Maybe have a friend who has either the new iPhone 16 or the iPhone 15 Pro is also going to get support for Apple Intelligence. So if you have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, when iOS 18.1 comes out, it will be available for your iPhone 15 Pro, and you will get the same Apple Intelligence features that's in that 0.1 update as all the brand new iPhone 16 models. If you have a 15 Pro and your main draw for the new phones is you want Apple Intelligence, you don't actually need a new phone, because all the same features are going to come to your phone at the same time they come to the new phones, the iPhone 16s. If you have iPhone 15 that's not a Pro or an older iPhone, you're not going to get Apple Intelligence at all. So in that case, just kind of hold on to your money for right now. See how the AI features actually pan out once the 18.1 update comes out. Maybe you have a friend that has an iPhone 15 Pro, wait for them to get the update, and then you can kind of sort of, have them demo and try some of the features, see if it's kind of for you, and kind of sort of go from there. I wouldn't right now, before the 18.1 update comes out, put my money and go buy an iPhone 16 just on the fact that I want the AI features. If you have other reasons that you want a new phone, maybe. So let's get to those. People are always wondering, should I get the new iPhone because it has better cameras, how much better photos or videos or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So this year, some of the cameras have been updated and some of them really haven't. The selfie camera, the front-facing camera, I think physically, they might not have done anything to it. So if your main desire is better selfies, you don't need the new iPhone. The selfie camera hasn't changed since the iPhone 14. Yeah, iPhone 14 Pro, they upgraded the selfie camera, which is what I have. I have a 14 Pro Max. And then I think they took that same selfie camera and didn't change it for the 15 Pro, but I think they did move it to the 15 non-Pro. So basically, if you want better selfies, you can probably get like a 14 Pro, or like if you have a 15, it's not really going to be any different. So I want to upgrade for the selfie camera. Another use case is if you want to take ultra wide photos. So you want to use the ultra wide lens. You're always in a situation where you find you can't stand back far enough, or you want to capture a wider angle than what your current phone does. Or you do have an ultra wide camera on your current iPhone, but you find that quality isn't very good. So on the 16 Pro and Pro Max, they did do a pretty significant upgrade to the ultra-wide back camera. They went for a 12 megapixel to a 48 megapixel. And there's some other quality improvements to the lens and the sensor as well. So if you really, really want an ultra-wide camera on your phone, you don't have one now, or you have an ultra-wide camera on your current phone, but you really wish it was better quality, then I think going for the 16 Pro or Pro Max would solve that problem. So I think if that's kind of your concern, I think the Pro or Pro Max could be a good upgrade for you. The other possible camera-related upgrade that might get you to the 16 Pro or Pro Max is if you don't have a telephoto lens, the zoom-in lens, and you really, really want one. You're always thinking, oh, if I wish I could zoom into that object that's super far away that I can't physically get closer to. Or maybe you do have a telephoto lens now, and you're like, oh, it's only 3x. I wish it zoomed in more, like 5x. So both the 16 Pro and the Pro Max this year have a 5x, have the same 5x telephoto camera. So I think if you use the ultra wide or wish you had one, or if you use the telephoto a lot or you wish you had one, that would make the case, and you have an older iPhone especially, I think that would make the case for going to the 16 Pro or Pro Max. If you really want their cameras, they didn't really change that much with the cameras on the base iPhone 16s, the non-Pro models versus like the iPhone 15. So I think if cameras are your jam and you have an older iPhone, iPhone 13 or before, and you have the money obviously, I think jumping to the Pro, the 16 Pro or Pro Max would probably make a lot of sense. Obviously they're relatively expensive phones, so make sure that you actually really, really want the better cameras and that you have a use case for the ultra wide and or the telephoto. That would make the jump to the 16 Pros the most worth it. There's a brand new camera button, like I mentioned before. And when there's like a brand new feature, people are always thinking, oh, should I upgrade for that brand new feature? Just like with Apple Intelligence, this is a brand new thing that has not existed on any previous iPhones before. Should you buy the new iPhone 16, any of the models, they all come with this new camera control button. Should you buy the new iPhone 16 for the camera control button? I'm going to say no, because it was marketed as it does a lot of things. It actually clicks in like a regular button. It's also force sensitive, so it can sense when you press it lightly or you press it harder, and like a mouse or like a trackpad on a laptop, you know, you can press it harder to do one action or press it lightly or tap it to do a different action. You can also slide your finger up or down on it, and you can like swipe between things. So it is a multifunctional button for the camera at this point, if you will. But I really don't think it's going to change your life. I don't think you should buy the new iPhone just for this button. I think it's going to be a very small number of people where this button is going to be really worth the upgrade. I really don't think it's gonna rock your world. So, you know, it's gonna be like a nice bonus to have that feature. I wouldn't upgrade to the 16 if that was one of the main selling points. Okay. Finally, the last reason, and probably the most common, most worthwhile reason to upgrade is if you have a really old iPhone. And I also sneaked in here to my notes, if you hate the lightning cables, if you hate the lightning port. So for many, many years, all the iPhones up until last year have had a lightning port. Last year for the 15s, Apple switched them all to a USB-C port, which is like the logical thing to do. They were forced by the EU. By EU regulations, they were forced to do it, but not that Apple would say that in any of its marketing, obviously. And obviously, the iPhone 16s continue to have a USB-C port, just like all the 15 iPhones, the iPhone 15s have. So if you have an older iPhone, and I think this would be if you have an iPhone 13 or earlier, and obviously the older your iPhone is, the more worthwhile and the more this point applies. I think if you have an old iPhone, it is probably worth an upgrade. Sometimes amongst the techies, we'll try to call out within the iPhone lineup over the years. There's some years where there were good years to upgrade and some years where they're not so good to upgrade. So in 2018, I believe, they came up with the iPhone 10. And the iPhone 10 was like a really big redesign of the iPhone. It was a completely different form factor. It was mostly all screen on the front, and we had this little notch. It had Face ID. It was a really big deal. It's like a really, really big change in 2018 with the iPhone 10 coming from the iPhone 8. That was before there was never an iPhone 9, by the way. So that was the year where, like, yeah, it was really worth it to upgrade that year because it was like a big, huge change. I wouldn't call this year is not a big change. This year is one of the smallest changes, honestly. I think the last time they had a major-ish change, I think was maybe for like the iPhone 13 or 14, 2 or 3 years ago when they went from the sides of the iPhone being rounded to like the flat sides. I can't remember if the iPhone 13 had flat sides, but I have a 14 Pro Max and it definitely has the flat sides. Honestly, I have a 14 right now, and I use my phone for actual work. I use it for a lot of video work, more than most people, and I make money off of these videos. So it's quite important to me that, you know, it's reliable, it's a good camera for videos, that it's really good quality. But I'm not upgrading to the 15, and I'm not upgrading to the 16. I'm going to see what the 17 has in store, because for the type of videos and the way that I use this phone for work, for its cameras, I use the main camera on the back pretty much 100% of the time. I very rarely use the ultra wide, only for like a random photo here and there. It's super rare for me to use the telephoto lens on my iPhone either. So for the main camera, it's pretty much the same camera that's in the 15 Pro and the 16 Pro. They haven't really changed it. They did upgrade the main camera supposedly on the 16 Pros, and it can do 4K video at 120 frames a second. So it's technically a better upgraded sensor, but I don't think the image quality is going to be upgraded. Just because something is newer and it has better specs and it can do certain new things like super high frame rates at 4K video doesn't mean that the quality, the visual quality of the video that it produces is any better. So yeah, I think if you have like an iPhone 13 or below, I think you could think about, well, maybe you've had the iPhone for quite a while, or you just hate the Lightning port. All your other devices use USB-C, and the only reason you're using Lightning is because of your stupid iPhone, and you would really rather not have the Lightning port anymore. If you're in that camp, I think it might make sense to do one of two things. You can actually buy a refurbished or used or even a new iPhone 15. Apple is still going to sell the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. They don't sell the Pros anymore, but they still sell them new for a lower price. Or you can buy a refurbished product. You can buy refurbished products straight from Apple, and they're pretty much like as if they're brand new. They still come with a warranty as well. Or you can buy used and save a whole ton of money, and you would get a phone that is pretty much the same, very similar to an iPhone 16. Even if you were really intrigued by Apple Intelligence and you just want something that's better value than a new iPhone 16s, buy a refurbished or used 15 Pro or Pro Max. You get all the same Apple Intelligence features at the same time that they come out for the iPhone 16. You get an excellent phone that is it's still an excellent phone, honestly. Like the 15 Pro and Pro Max are still excellent phones. The 16 Pro and Pro Max isn't really a huge upgrade. You're not really gonna notice it unless you put them side by side. Even then, you put the 15 and 16 Pros side by side. Unless you're a techie like me and know the difference, you might not be able to tell them apart. It's not really gonna feel any faster. It's not really gonna take better photos. If you want maybe the ultra wide camera will give you better photos because it's 48 megapixels now. It'll have slightly better battery life, but it's not shelling out several $100s more for the 16 Pro for that. But yeah, I think that's another camp where, hey, you have an older phone, whatever new phone you buy, you're gonna keep it probably for like 3 or 4 years because you've kept your current phone probably for 3 or 4 or longer. So if you really are gonna keep your phone for like at least 3 or 4 years, and that's the person you are, then it might make sense to buy like a newer phone because you're gonna keep it for a while. Or wait for the iPhone SE that's gonna come out in the spring. So if you are on a bit of a budget, okay, let's say you have an iPhone that's quite old, quite busted. You have like a 5 or 6 or 7 year old iPhone, okay, an iPhone 10, an iPhone 8, God forbid, iPhone 11 or something like that. And it's getting by, but it's starting to really show its age. You may have a cracked screen, the battery may not be holding up anymore, the camera is, by today's standards, not very good, it's still using the lightning port, it's starting to lag a little bit. If it really is like getting to be a bit of a clunker, but you're on a budget, but your phone still works, I would wait until Apple announces the new iPhone SE, and it should be coming in the spring, March-ish, give or take. iPhone SE is Apple's budget iPhone. Some people don't know about the SE, because they just know about the 14 and they just know about like the more premium models that are like 7, 8, 900 on up to like the thousands, okay? But the iPhone SE, the current model, is quite old, but the rumor is they're going to have a brand new iPhone SE at around the 500-ish mark, give or take. And it's going to get a major update in the spring. So it's going to be a similar design to the iPhones of the past couple years. It's going to have Face ID. It's going to have like the full screen display. Like the screen is going to take up the whole front of the phone, basically. And I think it's going to be really good value. Also, obviously will also be USB-C. So I think that one could be really, really good value if you have a older phone that you've had for quite a while. You don't care about the best cameras. You don't care about having the prestige or you don't have to brag about having like the best iPhone. You don't really care about that. You just want a really solid iPhone at a really good price point, somewhere about like $500-ish. You can either go with the used or refurbished market. There are a lot of great iPhones, like the iPhone 14 and iPhone 15 are still really good phones. You probably get an iPhone 15 in our used market for something like in that same like $400 to $600 range, a decent condition one. But if you rather have like a new one and have like have that warranty, and you're gonna keep it for a while, but your budget is like around $500. You don't care about any of the fancy features. You don't need the fastest processor. You don't need the most memory. You don't need the brightest and sharpest screen. You don't need 20 cameras on your phone. You just want like a really solid basic Apple iPhone, but like a new one with a warranty. The iPhone SE, I think, is probably the one to wait for. That should be coming out in the spring. Well, hopefully I didn't get too techie for you guys. I thought this was only gonna be for like 15 or 20 minutes, but I can see now I've been talking for like a half hour. I'm really passionate about tech. I'm a full-on techie. I've been in the IT industry for several years now, and yeah, I can just talk on, just like with cars. I can talk on and on about cars, but cars and tech are not necessarily something that most people want to talk about ad nauseum. But hopefully, I gave you some useful consumer advice. If you are thinking about the new iPhone, or just not just about the new iPhone 16s, but if you are thinking about, upgrading your current phone and you want some professional advice, or you just want someone to tell you, to give you permission. Sometimes when we talk to our friends or the tech guy or whoever, be like, do you think I should get the new iPhone? I think a lot of the times, a lot of people, when they ask the questions, regular consumers, they are kind of sort of looking for someone to tell them yes. They kind of want their decision to be validated, kind of sort of be given, quote unquote, permission that what they want to do, that's a totally optional thing, buying some brand new expensive iPhone, is made legitimate by someone else who seems to know what they're talking about, i.e. like a tech person. I'm not that type of a person, but like I said earlier, if you just want the new thing, you don't have to rationalize it. If you have money, just go buy it. So there you go. You heard it here first. If you have money, you want to buy something, just go buy it and don't feel guilty. Susie Orman wouldn't like me giving that advice, but I'm also not Susie Orman and I'm not a financial advisor. So there you go. Until next time. Bye, y'all.